Paul, a true apostle. Hello, I'm Heinrich, tertiary trained theologian, ordained minister, and a passionate follower of Jesus. I very often now on social media see this tendency of Christians, not really Christians, but rejecting the writings of Paul, because Paul wasn't an apostle or disciple of Jesus that spent 3.5 years here on earth in ministry, 3 years in ministry with Jesus, like all the other apostles. As you know, he initially was a persecutor of the church, killed Christians, imprisoned them, beat them. Um, so they reject all Paul's writings, which I think is crucially wrong. The Bible as we have it now is God's sacred word. If you have studied, as I have, the canonization of the word, you know that it is absolutely holy and sacred. And so much of our Christian dogma and teaching comes from Paul's letter. Paul had written 14 of the 27 books. Almost 51% of the New Testament is written by Paul. If we discard Paul's writings, it's disastrous. But in any case, there's this new tendency to say, oh, was Paul really apostle? So I want to just give you a few scriptures. Firstly, Paul had a personal supernatural experience with Christ. Acts 9, on the Damascus road, where Jesus appeared to him and the glory of Christ blinded him, and he was healed 3 days later when Ananias prayed for him, where he lived at John's house in Straight Street in Damascus, and he was baptized. And he became, in my opinion, the most successful apostle of all. Now, if you say, well, that encounter on the Damascus road, Luke wrote it. Luke wrote about it. Paul didn't write it himself. Luke wrote the book of Acts, the Gospel of Luke and Acts. So Luke acknowledged Paul's supernatural experience with Christ and his conversion. Then there is verses Paul himself wrote, Galatians 1:11-12, where he says he received the gospel from Jesus directly. So Paul often claims to have had personal experiences of the resurrected Christ, revealing to him instruction and knowledge. We call it an epiphany, a godly epiphany, where Christ appeared to him and taught him certain things. 1 Corinthians 11:23, Paul says, where he speaks about the Last Supper, he says he received directly from Christ teachings about the Last Supper. 1 Corinthians 5:3 again says, I have received from Christ the following. Now, before you say, well, Paul just claims these things, how do we know it's true? Firstly, Luke acknowledged that he had the supernatural experience with Christ and converted. And Luke extensively writes about the first, second, third missionary journeys, then the fourth journey. Not Paul himself, Luke does. And all the miracles God did through Paul. But then in 2 Peter 3, the Apostle Peter, which, if you look at the Gospels, was the leader of the disciples, or the almost in a way the main disciple, Peter, John, and James, were the inner circle of Jesus among the disciples. Peter himself in 2 Peter 3 says, 2 Peter 3 verse 15-16 confirms that and reflects and confirms the teachings of Paul. It was now his opportunity in his second letter, Peter, to just discard everything Paul wrote, if that was the case, that Paul didn't have the knowledge and didn't have the epiphany. So you can trust the writings of Paul. Keep your eyes fixed on heaven.